So today we're going to be taking a look at one of LG's products that give you this amazing remote, has this amazing finish on it, and produces an absolutely fantastic picture. Today we're looking at the LG Cinebeam HU715Q. So I've been spending a little bit of time using this, and today I'm going to explain to you what I love about it, what I hate about it, and everything in between. So first of all, this is LG's more affordable ultra short throw 4K projector. But just because it's more affordable doesn't mean it's not still fantastic. It features 2500 ANSI lumens, a 2:1,000,000 contrast ratio, and it has some great LG specific features that makes this projector really unique in the marketplace. But first of all, let's just have a look at this thing. So the form factor is very similar to most ultra short throw projectors in that it is just a sort of rectangle that sits in front of where you want the screen to be. Now, like the other LG ultra short throw projector, this is pretty much the same design wise. It's a white box with a bit of a grey mesh on the front. Very simple, but still very sophisticated and smart. Now on the front you have this mesh which behind houses the internal speakers. Now we'll get onto them later when I talk about the sound quality. On the side you have the air intakes, which has this sort of nice slash look, looks really good. And then on the back of the projector, there's this little area over to the side for your ports. Now with the 715, we have two HDMI 2.0 ports and a HDMI 2.1 port. Don't get too excited though, because it's not 48 gigabytes per second port, so you're not going to be playing 4K games at 120 Hz, but the 2.1 port does allow an enhanced audio return channel and auto low latency mode. Now we do get two USB ports and a LAN port, so if you want to connect this to your network, you can do that either wired or wireless through Wi-Fi. And then alongside that audio return channel, we do have an optical port, which means there's a little bit of flexibility there as to how you handle your audio. Now, if we look at the bottom of the projector, we do have 4 feet, and that's going to come in really handy for setting the projector up, but we do have something else. We can actually ceiling mount this projector. Now, I don't know about you, I don't think I would ceiling mount a ultra short throw projector like this, but actually it does give you a really good option if you don't want the projector on a stand and you want it out of the way. And then when you're setting up the projector, you can choose what position you have it in, whether you have it on the floor, on the ceiling, or behind or in front of the projector. Now looking a little bit closer at this remote, I think this remote is absolutely amazing. Now being a projector, it is a backlit remote, and not all projectors have backlit remotes, so the fact that they've gone for backlit with this projector is actually brilliant. Ultimately, when you're using a projector, you're going to be in as dark room as possible to try and make the most out of it, and there's nothing worse than not knowing what buttons you're pressing. And you are going to need to know what buttons you're pressing. If you are used to LG TVs and you've used the LG Magic Remote before, then one, you're going to be really happy that this has that, but you're also going to have to get used to the fact that not all the buttons are in the same place. Yeah, the arrangement is a little bit off, and if like me you're used to the LG remote, having to retrain your mind how to use it is a bit difficult, so I'm glad it's backlit. Now being the LG Magic Remote, you do have the cursor that you can wave around like a Wii remote, and it works really well. It's actually a very good alternative to just being able to click your way through everything, being able to quickly move over and point out what you want to go on. That's perfect. Now also on this remote are some projector specific buttons. So we have quick access to different picture settings, but also we have shortcuts to get us to a place where we can set up the projector in the best way. Now speaking of properly setting this up, you do have the option of either a 4-point, a 9-point, or a 15-point keystone correction. Now this is good if you just can't get the position of that projector right. You can use this to go in and trim it down to be the right shape and size. Now if you can avoid it, I would recommend doing so. The reason is, as soon as you start keystoning, you're adding extra processors into the image, and if you want the best picture quality and the best performance of this projector, eliminating as many extra processes as you can is going to be the best thing to do. Now along with the keystone, we also have a motorized focus. Now essentially you can use this to focus the projector. So depending on how far away you have it from your screen, you're going to be needing to focus it. This does get us onto sort of the focus uniformity. A lot of the time with ultra short throw projectors, you can find the top corners furthest away from the projector tend to sort of not quite get in focus. And I did sort of get that with this projector, sort of in those top corners. It was hard to get it to be as sharp as you would potentially want it to be, but you can offset that a little bit. And if you're avoiding the keystone correction and you're using the legs at the bottom of the projector to sort of get that image as perfect as possible, you're going to alleviate most of this issue. So once you're set up, the projector is just like any LG TV you would know. It's running WebOS, which means you have all of the apps you'd expect, the layout you'd expect, and even the settings menu that you'd expect. Obviously, there are some projector-specific options, but when we get into some of those settings, there are a few different things to help you enhance the image of the TV. No, I'm even saying TV, I mean image of the projector. Now, honestly, I'm really glad that it's got WebOS. I quite like WebOS. I think sometimes the layout is a little bit cluttered, but it makes a really nice change from every projector running Android TV. And I mean, Android TV's okay, but there are certain things with WebOS that I really like and that I prefer. And one thing that this does have over a lot of other projectors is it does run Netflix natively. You don't have to plug anything separate in to be able to run Netflix, you can just do it straight off the app. And along with that, you get a lot of the WebOS features like linking it to LG's ThinQ, you've got AirPlay 2, and ultimately Projector just works very well. Now, once we're past all of that, what's the sound like? It's got good speakers built in behind the mesh. It's a 2.2 40 watt system, so you've got 20 watts on each side, and ultimately the sound is pretty good. There's a lot of customization available, so you can really go in and tweak the EQ just as you want the sound, but ultimately I found just leaving it in standard mode was pretty good. Now, it doesn't have anything on a standalone sound system, so if you have a good sound bar with a dedicated sub, your sound is going to be better than it is just out of the box with this one, but considering a projector you're just sticking it on the floor and pressing go, the sound is actually quite impressive. Picture quality, how does it actually look? I mean, you could argue that this is the most important part of buying a projector. How good is the picture? And I have to say, I am very impressed with the picture quality on the LG Cinebeam. Now, being 2500 anti-lumens, the brightness is pretty good. I did find you have to go in and tweak a lot of the settings. Out of the box, I would say it's not perfect and you need to sort of go in and get things right for your personal preference. Now, the projector does have HDR tone mapping, which on some films is brilliant and some films it just isn't really that good. You tend to find that it would make the picture a bit too dark crushed, and sometimes you have to turn it off, and then sometimes you'd get a lot of light blooming and you need to turn it on to sort of bring out some of that detail. So the sort of auto detection of whether that's needed probably isn't that good, and it does require a little bit of manual input from yourself to sort of choose what's right for what input. I also found that HDR by default was very, very dark, and I had to go in and turn the brightness up. I then also did that to SDR content, and that just made it too bright. So out of the box, SDR, you can pretty much just leave it where it is. HDR, definitely go in and brighten that up. And I also had this weird thing that when I was watching films, I was noticing that felt like the colours were just constantly shifting, and it was going from having a very slight green tone to not, and it was sort of flicking in between different scenes, almost like the projector was recognising a scene and adjusting the picture settings on the go, which is a good idea, and I think for a lot of people they might like that. I found that quite distracting personally, so I had to go in and I went in and turned off some of the auto adjusting settings like the adaptive contrast and stuff like that. I just sort of left it as all being off, so then I could just sort of enjoy the content as it was by default, and I found like that was better for me. But those settings are there, so if you do sort of want this sort of adaptive look and adaptive feel, then go in and turn it on and see what you think. But personally, I was just more than happy just to switch it all off. Now, ultra short throw projectors, and especially laser projectors, most people say that they're not great for gaming, and I'd have to agree in most circumstances. This projector isn't massively highly rated for gaming. They're not saying that you should be gaming on this, but I tested it to see what it was like, and ultimately it was actually okay. The games looked brilliant in terms of how they handled the colours and everything like that. They were fantastic. Normally the main issue with projectors is things like input lag. Now, as you can see here, this isn't a proper speed test, but this is just sort of reactions from me pressing buttons, and even though the input lag isn't the best it could possibly be, it certainly isn't bad. I mean, it's very, very playable, and ultimately if you're just a casual gamer, then ultimately I would be surprised if you actually notice. If you do play a lot of games, you spend a long time playing games, and you sort of do notice these things, you're quite sensitive to it, there is a little bit of input lag, but like I said, I mean, I barely noticed it. One nice thing that they have pulled in from some of the LG TVs is the game optimizer mode. So when you're playing a game, just like on an LG C2, when you press the settings button, it's going to open up Game Optimizer as opposed to the normal settings menu. This gives you information like what frame rate you're running at, and it gives you some little settings that you can sort of tweak. So if you're finding that there's not a lot of shadow detail, you can bring the blacks up a little bit, or if you feel like you're getting a lot of light blooming, you can sort of bring down the whites, and vice versa. And ultimately, this is one of the reasons why LG OLEDs are some of the best gaming TVs that you can get, and the fact that they brought this to this projector is actually a really nice touch. So if you are going to be gaming on this, that's probably more good than bad. How much does something like this cost? Ultimately, you're getting between an 80 and 120 inch display, and it's going to cost you £2,999. Now, for an ultra short throw projector with these sort of features, that is very, very reasonable, especially if you're not a big fan of the whole Android TV thing and you want to sort of lean towards an actual TV operating system like LG's WebOS. Then you're probably going to be really, really happy with this. It's an affordable price, there's tons of good features, the picture quality is great, and ultimately it looks like a piece of artwork when it's sat on your side table. I want to know what your thoughts are. Put down in the comments what your thoughts are on this, and tell me what other projectors do you think this is comparable to, and would you pick this or would you pick those? Guys, click this video here to see more from me, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Whoop!